Justin Bieber's back. Great music is on the way. Get ready for the pop world to be reset. The US Open has become the new Coachella for sports. Kawhi Leonard allegedly received a near extra $50 million. Josh Allen then turned that lead into just a 2-point lead with another touchdown, now 40-38. Welcome back to another episode of Behold Pop Culture, the show where we take a look at all the top cultural moments every single week to make sure you're never missing out on a conversation. Whether it's the NFL season starting, the new album that everyone's talking about, you'll make sure to understand exactly the context as to why people are losing their minds for that topic. Today's headline moment of the week begins with a mystery. It starts with a man whose name is Pablo Torre, an investigative journalist who works at The Athletic doing a podcast called Pablo Finds Out, found out Kawhi Leonard allegedly received a near extra $50 million outside of his NBA contract from a company that's affiliated with the Clippers. In a sports league where you're not allowed to spend beyond the cap that the league designates for an owner, if any owner is found to have somehow gotten around that by sneaking money into a player's pocket, that's punishable by losing your entire team and that team losing draft picks, ability to spend on players, and much more. Kawhi signed a deal with tree planting company Aspiration. This company had a deal with the Clippers to sponsor them for many years to come, and Steve Ballmer himself, the owner of the Clippers, donated $50 million to support their cause. Where things get fishy is Kawhi never actually did any type of major marketing for them. He never was posting about this company on social media. Nothing that would point to the direction of this company feeling like they needed to pay out a bunch of money to him. Yet, this journalist found that he was owed at least $28 million that was set to be fulfilled for the company. Why would Kawhi get paid $28 million for what is now being called a no-show job? Now the NBA has launched a full investigation to figure out what is going on. This is a bad look for Kawhi, who has a reputation of missing a bunch of games, yet is apparently being paid under the table by this company. And this is a bad look for the Clippers, who just invested billions of dollars into building a brand new arena and wanted to wipe the slate clean to set their own legacy, now separate from the Los Angeles Lakers. If the NBA finds out that owner Steve Ballmer had any type of awareness that these payments were going on, draft picks, contracts, ownership of the team is all in conversation to be taken away. These are the journalist Pablo Torre's allegations, and he seems to be strongly suggesting that he believes that Steve Ballmer was aware of this. In my eyes, Kawhi clearly got some substantial amount of money from this company, and Kawhi pretty clearly didn't make any significant contribution to that company's aspirations other than being a player, a superstar at that, for the Los Angeles Clippers, who they have a partnership with. I hope for the Clippers' sake that this company acted alone without Steve Ballmer knowing. But it really does open the door to asking how many superstar players out there only signed with the team because of these backdoor deals. We hope that every time a player goes to a new team, is to improve their situation, sure, to build up their cachet. A player signing a Nike deal or a player wanting to go to California to be involved with Hollywood. Things that are tangible to the human eye. But if players are constantly getting millions and millions of dollars without teams knowing, without the commissioner knowing, every time a trade or a big free agent signing happens, the FBI might need to get involved. Unfortunately for Kawhi Leonard, I don't think this story will be going away anytime soon. Luckily for him, as we move into the official sports section of the podcast, there was another piece of NBA news that was significant that may have deterred the conversation into a more positive light. And that is NBA legend Carmelo Anthony was officially inducted into the Hall of Fame. Carmelo has scored a bunch of points and won a bunch of awards, but what he'll really be remembered for is the impact he had on kids who tried to imitate him, hitting the three-point celebration after they make that crazy shot playing with their friends, hitting game winners or clutch shots, and yelling bang, imitating what we would hear watching the New York Knicks as Carmelo Anthony hit many a clutch shot to save the day. Carmelo wasn't just another great basketball player. He was one of the most influential players of his time. From the fact that he was one of the best scorers in the NBA, hitting threes, getting physical, dunking on players, to his style. From the braids to the iconic headband that he would wear in many of the great highlights that you will see from him, even when he cut the braids off, to his philanthropy, often being seen volunteering at community events and especially helping out children who looked up to him. Carmelo has an untouchable basketball legacy, which is why you'll see some people that are happy for him making the Hall of Fame because of his time on the New York Knicks. There are people who are happy for him because of his time in Denver, growing from a rookie to a grown man player who went dueling with some of the best players out west for many years. And there are some people that were there when in college, before he even touched the NBA, he won a championship for Syracuse. The last time that they won, people to this day continue to reminisce on what it was like seeing arguably the best player in basketball at that time come to that school and bring them a championship. Something that nowadays does not happen as often. Today, that legacy will continue on with his son, Kiyan Anthony, now playing at Syracuse himself and potentially having the opportunity to extend that Anthony legacy for that school. So while myself and the world were taking the time to applaud Carmelo and give him his flowers, many other people were preparing for one of the biggest Sundays of the year in sports. Because not only did the US Open final take place for the men, highlighted by a budding rivalry between Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner, the NFL season officially began. And it really started on Thursday with the kickoff of the Eagles taking on the Dallas Cowboys, the defending champions taking down one of their biggest rivals in Philadelphia in front of that home crowd still buzzing off of that Super Bowl win. That then was followed with the NFL continuing to expand its influence, going to Brazil to feature the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. Unfortunately, for the other defending Super Bowl contenders, the Kansas City Chiefs fell to the Los Angeles Chargers. They looked much more out of sorts, really as a continuation of what we saw in that Super Bowl when they seemed to just fall apart when all the marbles were on the table. But that first football Sunday just hit so different. 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. West Coast time. That first kickoff where you're watching 5 games simultaneously begin and highlights galore commences. The one game that you needed to watch was the New York Jets taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, just a couple years ago, if you might recall, signed with the New York Jets, and he was supposed to be their savior. He came to be the best quarterback possibly ever to play for the New York Jets, for a Jets team who for many years now have essentially removed the word playoffs from their vocabulary. His tenure began with him tearing his Achilles just a couple minutes into his first game, and it seemed like the boat just sunk after that, as he would miss that entire season, come back the next year with some more hope again, and just proceed to disappoint, with some people saying it was because he didn't fully heal from his injury yet, and some people just said he straight up wasn't good anymore. It was honestly hard to tell which one it was. Every time I watched him before the Jets' tenure, he was someone who could pretty much teleport the ball into his receiver's hands at will. He also was someone who was a leader for his team and elevated otherwise average players into phenomenal role players. But while I may have given him another opportunity to see if it was just his recovery from the injury, the Jets had other plans. They asked him to fly all the way back to New York during the offseason to tell him face-to-face, we're not continuing on with you on this team. And found another guy by the name of Justin Fields, who came from the Pittsburgh Steelers to become the new quarterback for this season for the New York Jets. There's no problem with that, deciding that you want to move a little younger, give a new opportunity. Maybe you don't think that Aaron Rodgers has it anymore. But in a strike of twisted fate, what happens? Aaron Rodgers decides that he's not done and signs with that team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. He likes the team they have. He has an appreciation for their coaching, so he decides to team up with the Steelers. Where things got even crazier and the narrative elevated to a new level was when the NFL scriptwriters went to work and they decided to start the NFL season. The first game on the oh-so-great NFL Sundays was the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the New York Jets. Two teams that swapped their quarterbacks and two teams where those quarterbacks might have a little bit of bitterness towards those teams. For Rodgers, the Jets gave up on him. For Justin Fields, the Steelers gave up on him. So it was a classic duel set up for NFL Sunday. But if you catch the fact that both teams gave up on these quarterbacks, there was a reason behind that. They didn't believe they were that good. So many people thought even though there was a big narrative in play here, it probably would be a low-scoring game. Both teams had good defenses, and whoever came out on top would just be happy to get a little bit of revenge. What we didn't know was that it would be an all-out offensive masterclass from both teams. The New York Jets ran all up and down the field on the Pittsburgh Steelers that were supposed to have one of the best defenses in the league. And that seemed like it would be enough for the Jets, who were playing at home in New Jersey, to get their revenge on a guy that they expected to bring them a Super Bowl. But it wasn't enough. Aaron Rodgers had other plans because he came in to the place that had embraced him for 2 years and let his game do the talking, showing them that he's still that guy, and they made a massive mistake because Aaron Rodgers walked into MetLife Stadium and threw for 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and walked out winning the game on a 60-yard kick that the Jets could not come back and tie themselves. Rodgers looked sharp, Jets fans were in shambles, and now a narrative that I may have even downplayed in my last episode might be even bigger. If Aaron Rodgers can be coming into stadiums throwing for 4 touchdowns every Sunday, we might have a total revenge tour taking place on our hands. That being the game of the week only lasted about 5 hours because the game of the year took place that night as the Baltimore Ravens took on the Buffalo Bills in a game that will be remembered for many years to come. The last time these two teams saw each other was in the playoffs, where the Buffalo Bills eliminated the Baltimore Ravens when they were shorthanded as their best wide receiver, Zay Flowers, was injured and couldn't play that game. So you might go as far as to say that there were some sore feelings going into this game. For the Ravens, looking for revenge. For the Bills, trying to prove that it wasn't just a fluke. The game started normally, Josh Allen leading a drive to score. The Ravens then finding a way to score with their great running back, Derrick Henry. Then the Ravens started to pile on points. Lamar Jackson scores, they get in field goal range, kick. Halftime comes and the Ravens are pouring it on even more. Another touchdown, another drive down the field. And it looked like the Ravens would get their revenge. With 4 minutes left in the game, Lamar and his running back Derrick Henry had put up over 200 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns, more than enough to win a football game. And with this game being in Buffalo, many of those fans started to leave the stadium, frustrated, upset that they were about to lose this game in a dominant fashion to the Baltimore Ravens. But then magic happened right before our very eyes. Josh Allen was able to drive down the field to score, but things still looked dire as the Ravens would have been able to just run the ball and wait for the clock to tick down. But then their superstar running back did something that he almost never does. He fumbled the ball. He gave the ball back to the Buffalo Bills. And with that opportunity, in a matter of seconds, Josh Allen then turned that lead into just a 2-point lead with another touchdown, now 40-38. The Ravens, once again, all they had to do was run the ball, let the clock tick down, go home with a win. But they couldn't get another first down to seal the game. So they ran. The clock had about a little over a minute left, and they handed the ball back to Josh Allen, who did what he always does. This is the reigning MVP of the National Football League. Of course he was going to find a way, as he drove down the field again, let the clock tick down to just a couple seconds, set their kicker up, and hit a walk-off kick to send the Baltimore Ravens home, to reward the Buffalo Bill fans that stayed, and provide one of the most entertaining, craziest Stunning, shocking comebacks that NFL fans have seen in years. Blockbuster NFL football is officially back. That was an all-time game. One that if you have even a little bit of spare time and a little bit of interest, it would be worth going to watch the last 4 minutes as the craziness unfolded. While that prior Steelers-Jets game took place, the US Open final followed it up as Carlos Alcaraz has done it again. He took down Jannik Sinner to win his 6th title, the second youngest to ever do that. Carlos Alcaraz has ascended to one of the great young talents that the game of tennis has ever seen, winning these 6 titles, and he's only the young age of 22. But somehow, when we look at this from the Behold pop culture lens, there's a bigger story taking place. Because 20 years ago, this might not have made it on my podcast if I was making it then. Because tennis was a more niche sport, and only occasionally when you have a superstar would it ever breach into more massive popular culture. The Billie Jean Kings, the Serena Williamses, Roger Federer or Novak Djokovic. But today, something bigger has been brewing that might make it a mainstay regardless of who plays. And that is the fact that the US Open has become the new Coachella for sports. The US Open has morphed into an influencer-led fashion fest for people to come and take Instagram pictures. Whether it's an actor like Emma Roberts, an athlete like Saquon Barkley turning into a meme watching the matches, the president of the United States delaying the match because of so much security that has to be set up. The US Open was once a place where you would just come to see the best tennis players in the world. But today, it's a hub for content creation. It's the beautiful New York summer, wide open space, which there's not a lot of in New York City. And it's an all-day event where you can walk around, interact with digital activations for different companies. Naomi Osaka this year was showing off her Labubus. There's so many eyes on it that when many years ago you might have been able to get into these matches for semi-affordable prices, the championship game, the title match between Sinner and Alcaraz, you reasonably would have had to expect to shell out at least $1,000 to go witness that. It's great for the sport because it's even easier to watch the games today, see the highlights, and have investment for the sport of tennis in general. And that's in addition to the fact that it really highlights the amazing things that are being done with these phenomenal athletes on the tennis court. As star-studded and blockbuster as this weekend was for sports, the music world just couldn't leave it alone because one of the biggest pop stars of my generation, Justin Bieber, dropped another new album, Swag 2. Justin Bieber popped up out of the blue again to say, hey, I'm dropping another album. And with this second one, Swag 2, it totals 44 new songs between Swag 2 and Swag 1, which means 44 songs were dropped from Justin Bieber in a matter of less than 2 months. This coming with him not having released an album in over 4 years. So the Beliebers, as you can imagine, have lost their mind. Justin Bieber's back. Great music is on the way. Get ready for the pop world to be reset. But it actually was anything but that, because this was a different Justin Bieber. This was a Justin Bieber that isn't talking about just getting his peaches out in Georgia, a Justin Bieber that isn't talking about just baby, baby, baby. This is a Justin Bieber who, with these 2 projects, is taking the time to go inward and reflect on fatherhood, life in the limelight, clocking and standing on business, with a more bright R&B sound influenced from genre benders Dijon and McGee, with him leaning more into spirituality, even with a song where he's literally just telling the story of Adam and Eve. This is being viewed more like a victory lap for Justin Bieber, a freer Justin that's doing whatever he wants on these tracks. As enormous as Justin's hits are, I've always felt like he was more in his pocket, in his bag even, when he was clearly to the audience pulling from the real life experiences. The Purpose album, for example, where he comes back from a relative down in his career where some fans left him. His debut album's My World, where he was just a kid from Canada trying to make it. And the present day version of Justin Bieber is laying it all out for the world to see. Whether it's him arguing with the paparazzi or him trying to be a good father, he seems more willing to show you pieces of exactly who he is. The forecast for albums in September is pretty big coming up, particularly for female pop stars. Cardi B's supposed to drop an album. Mariah Carey was promoting her next album on Kai Cenat's Mafiathon stream. Doja Cat is pushing towards her next project, with it beginning with the single Jealous Type that she'll be performing for the VMAs. Luckily, you won't have to worry about missing out because Behold Pop Culture will be there for you. The film and gaming worlds were a little bit more quiet this weekend, so there's not much to share with you. In social media, Kai Cenat continues to push on with Mafiathon 3. At the time of this recording, he's hit 300,000 subscribers, almost a third of the way to his goal of 1 million. And he's already had people from Mariah Carey, Ice Spice, the Jonas Brothers, and several more coming on stream to both promote their work, but also have fun times with Kai. Simultaneously, IShowSpeed is making his way around the country with side quests like racing Jaylen Brown, the Boston Celtics star, meeting his family in Detroit, Michigan, while the gaming world is treading carefully right now because this is that time where just a couple of games are going to dominate heading into Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and Christmas when all the kids are asking their parents to buy that one game. We'll see if that's Call of Duty, Pokemon coming up, the Ghost of Tsushima sequel, or the bubbling Battlefield release. So that brings us to the end of this week. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you taking the time out to stay up to date with all the biggest moments from this past week that you need to know so that you're never left out of the conversation with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you're ever interested in more of my immediate reactions to things taking place, you can also find me on Instagram Reels, TikTok, and YouTube. Continue to let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you next week. This is Behold Pop Culture.